Thank you. Mechanics of original research manuscript drafting. Greetings to everyone from Thailand. This is the outline of my presentation for today. Introduction, clear structure, title and abstract, precise language, citation and references, figures and tables, proofreading and editing, intellectual property if we have time, and summary and conclusion. Introduction. We are at the frontiers of knowledge. We need to explore the uncharted territories when we conduct our research. And we are eternally in pursuit of pushing the boundaries of knowledge, and upon which we are to create innovative ideas and our innovative future. We are the breeding ground for groundbreaking ideas. However, we must always recognize the researchers who have tread the path before us in coming up with revolutionary ideas, their findings before us. So that's the pulse of progress. Research is the heartbeat of academic evolution. We have a collective responsibility to propel our fields forward, and we have to craft the future through our research. Each manuscript shapes the future landscape, and authors must see your work as building blocks of scientific legacy. And therefore, we are creating a symphony of ideas. We compare research to a symphony in which each note contributes to the harmonious, encourage collaboration and diverse perspectives for a richer melody. We do not assume there's only one way by which we can view the world. In fact, there are always multiple ways by which we can study the world. The research process is a crucible, forging ideas into intellectual gold. Be excited about being part of this transformative crucible. And we need to unveil the veil of ignorance. Inherent curiosity drives academic pursuit. I urge you to unravel the mysteries and dispel the veil of ignorance. So we need to have the power of precision when we draft our manuscripts. We have to be meticulous as well as precise. And we have to accept that we're navigating into the unknown. If we're writing about something we'll already know, that is not research. That is just parroting what had already been written. So research is an adventurous journey into the unknown. We should not have preconceived conclusions. Embrace uncertainties and navigate with scholarly courage. This is a call to action, inviting researchers to work on your magnum opus. I invite you to collectively shape the future of research and social reality. Original manuscript. What does that mean? An original manuscript is a scholarly document presenting either one, new findings, something we didn't know in the past, or two, new insights derived from the systematic investigation. We can get new findings, for example, when we try to create new vaccines for different diseases or new diseases. New insight could be, we already have the old philosophies, let's say of Kautilya, of Arthashastra, of Kama, of Dharma, of Moksha. But we need to have new insights. So we do not only parrot what had been written in the past, but maybe we will reinterpret in the present context, see the relevance of such ideas as moksha, kama, dharma, artha into the present life. So even studying old concepts can be new research, as long as we do not just repeat what had been said in the past, but we have new ways by which we understand the old philosophies, for example, And it is very important that we engage in academic discourse. We have discussions and debates with other people. This is the gateway to contributing valuable insights into the scholarly community. So, how do we craft our title? Okay. Titles can be powerful if we follow certain guidelines, among which are the following. It should be a picture perfect summary of what you intend to do. It should be very crystal clear in conveying the correct message, not confusing, not the opposite of content. I'll give you an example. I know somebody who had worked on a research and wanted to have it funded to continue the research somewhere else. Let's say the title given was the importance of international law in the world order. So I talked to this author. What do you want to say? In fact, the author gave the opposite idea of what the author wanted to do. He, in fact, was trying to say international law is not important. So the title was not the total opposite of what the author intended to do. So what signal do you give to the funding agency? The wrong signal. The title must express clearly what you really intend to do and should be concise, precise, and with high impact. Concise means very few words. Precise means it must be as close to the reality of what you actually want to do. Impactful is it has a big appeal to the audience, to the people who are reading your work. So concise, precise, and impactful. And avoid jargon, except if the jargon is within your field. But you have to immediately define the jargon somewhere near the title, like in the abstract or in the introduction. Okay, avoid jargon. And oftentimes there are word counts for everything for publication, like in a journal. 15 words max is the usual max word count, which includes both the title and if you have subtitle as well. So you consider both of them to be part of the word count. Uh, so try to count each time you write your title. If you go beyond it, revise, revise, revise. Okay, I'll give examples of titles later. Okay, but titles, your research questions or hypothesis, the literature you're using, the methods, methodology, the findings and conclusion. Again, I had somebody I know whose title was the importance of international law, but the author is saying international law is useless. So the title was totally wrong and opposite. And the person wanted to seek funding for it to be so that the person can continue the research. And believe it or not, in big funding agencies, nobody actually reads your papers. They use computers. They have algorithm. If the keyword they're looking for, this is a tip to all writers. Let's say this is a call for project proposal on, let's say, the future of the world order. You must use the keyword future in your proposal. Word order must appear in your proposal. If you write international order as a synonym, the algorithm, the machine does not know it's a synonym. The exact words must appear in your proposal. So this is the rule, because even for job application now in the US, no one reads. It's all algorithm. If they say we want this person with these qualifications, the words in their call for a job application must appear in your application letter, in your cover letter. So these are certain rules you must take into consideration. For example, a journal, let's say, will accept X number of articles. And they say the theme of this volume is on XYZ. So you must use the keywords in the call for proposals or call for abstracts. If you don't, there's a high likelihood your paper or proposal or abstract will be rejected because there will be thousands of submissions. They can only take so much. Okay, so titles are very crucial when you submit to, let's say, a journal with a theme or a conference with a theme. But annual or regular conferences usually do not have themes because they are just annual and regular. But those special conference themes, you must pay attention to them if there are. Okay, to consider, your title must appeal to the readers. Okay, it should highlight what is new. If you're only repeating something we already know, it will not be likely accepted. Or what is the contribution of your paper to existing knowledge? And your title must again be in line with what you actually write inside your whole paper. I gave you example of someone who gave the opposite impression by giving a wrong title. This is real. This is a real case. And balance creativity with substance. If you have to choose between beautiful title and a clear title is more important. But if you can have both clear title and a very impactful title, that's the best. But don't go for impact without substance. You might give, again, the wrong impression. So titling is very critical. So that's some guidelines for the title. Guidelines for abstract. Okay, just like the title should have 15 words max. So you can have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Abstract, it depends on the journal, it depends on the conference. I have submitted abstract. The maximum number of words was 90. So I have to reduce everything to 90 words. And I also have submitted abstract 120 words, 150 words. And I think the real maximum for a full paper or a thesis or dissertation is 250. Literally one page, a double space max. The abstract of a thesis or dissertation should not exceed one double space page. Or if it's single space, 200 to 250, just the same. Okay, so follow the author guidelines, whatever they tell you. So it should be complete but precise also. Abstracts are presented first. After the title, you have an abstract. However, you do not write the abstract first. Why not? Because you can only write the abstract if you already know the findings and most especially the conclusion. If you don't know the conclusion, you cannot write the abstract because you want to find out something, whether it's true or false, whether there are 5 elements or 6, or there's some surprises. So you don't know at the beginning when you start writing your paper. Therefore, you have to wait until the completion of your research, upon which you can now write your abstract. So it's presented first, but it's written last. Okay. There are some core elements which should be in your abstract. In qualitative vocabulary, they're called, what are the concepts, key concepts? In quantitative vocabulary, it's called variables, like independent variable, dependent variable, mediating variable, etc., etc. There are tons of variables. So keep the vocabulary different because they're not the same. When you use the word variable, what is conjured in the mind is quantitative research. Okay. Then you must have the problem statement included. It could be the problem statement in social reality, or a conceptual problem or theoretical problem, or a gap, either in social reality. For instance, we don't have a vaccine for X disease for social reality, or concept. What will be the name of our future world order once, let's say, there'll be a change of superpowers. That's the social gap. Or needs assessment. What do we need to do? Because uh, there are issues in society, concerns which have to be met. So it's both real world or conceptual. So you can choose one or the other just for the abstract, because abstract you have limited number of words that you can put in. And then what do you want to do? So in qualitative research, it's called general purpose or specific objectives or the research question. In quantitative research, it's called hypothesis. Okay, so different vocabulary for different types of research. So include one or the other, but don't say in a qualitative research or a hypothesis. You should not in a qualitative research. It's only for quantitative research. And then write in one sentence what are the concepts or theory that you have used without citing authors. This is in fact an explicit guideline when I submitted a paper to a Scopus journal in England in the UK, and they said, do not mention authors in your abstract because you are supposed to be the focus, not other people you have cited, because this is your work. This is your time to shine. So you should not quote other people. Don't say this author, that author in your abstract. You are the main character, protagonist, and when you write your abstract. Okay, and write one sentence or two in qualitative research. How did you collect your data? Or what is your data analysis method that you use? In quantitative, you would say, I had a sampling of how many students from this year to that year, and the quantitative data are subjected to nonlinear multiple regression, period. That's for example. So the vocabulary is different in qualitative and in quantitative. The same thing. We have one sentence on the main body of your research. In qualitative language, it's findings of your research. In quantitative vocabulary, it's called the results of your research. They mean kind of the same thing, but different vocabulary. Because when you say results, results of what? Of testing, of quantitative testing, or results of experiment. You cannot say results and findings when you didn't do any experiment or test. So just call them findings, plain and simple, for qualitative research. And in qualitative vocabulary, it's called conclusion, how you ended your paper. In quantitative vocabulary, it's called discussion. But sometimes qualitative will use discussion, quantitative sometimes would use conclusion. It's okay. We know that it's not a big deal for this. But don't use results for qualitative because results means results of experiments, results of tests. Okay, which you don't have in qualitative. But this is okay when they interchange. So don't have a fixated mind that there are hard and rigid rules. Sometimes these are semi-flexible, the vocabulary. Okay, and you can end by saying a one-sentence summary or one-sentence contribution or one-sentence agenda for policy, agenda for research, etc. Because you cannot put all. Abstract is very short. So you choose one or the other, but not all of them. And most journals would say give 5 keywords max. Sometimes I gave 3 and they say we need 5. So I realized they really mean 5. Okay. Keywords are not a joke because when people do research, when you use your keywords, people will most likely find your paper. So keywords mean a lot. It's not just putting them down for the sake of putting them down. So you will be known globally in the academic world, in the research world, by your title and your keywords. So choose cautiously each time during which you will write your keywords upon submission of your papers to a publisher, and do them in alphabetical order. Again, it depends on the journal. Most journals to which I've submitted my paper wanted the first words to be in capital letter. I've one very recent submission. They want it to be all no caps, no capital letters. So follow the author guidelines, okay? Because if you have so many violations of author guidelines, your paper might be rejected not because it is a bad paper, but simply because you did not follow the guidelines. It will irk and anger the reviewer, and they will just dismiss your paper. They say, this is too much headache. I see so many technical errors, although it's a good paper. It really happens. I've spoken to reviewers who've rejected paper because they got so frustrated with their wrong comma, spelling, grammar, and so on. Okay, we will talk about that later in proofreading and editing. And there are different types of outlines. In quantitative paper, it's pretty easy. IMRAD, introduction with the latest literature of the findings in one sentence. In quantitative, they don't look at authors or who are the famous authors. That's not what they do. They are looking at, for example, let's go back to the example of vaccines. They would say, well, we are conducting research to have a new vaccine on X disease. So they would say the most recent studies show that upon experiments with 33,000 individuals who have been given this vaccine, the efficacy of this vaccine A is 80% with 5% margin of error. The efficacy of vaccine B is 92% with 5% margin of error. So now we want to create a new vaccine. So they don't care about theory. They care about what are the latest developments for real world use. For example, vaccine. Unlike in qualitative research, you have to go to the theories and the authors who have contributed to the understanding of one concept or the other, like globalization or human resources. But that's not the concern in quantitative. The concern is what are the latest developments, for example, in medicine? Do we have a better one? If not, we will try to create a better one. Okay, so the literature for qualitative and quantitative are two worlds apart. In humanities, they don't use either research purpose or hypothesis. They tend to use thesis statement. What is the central thesis of your paper? This is done a lot in history, in theology, in divinity. So different research areas have different ways of writing their outlines. There's not one universal outline for all. Okay. And in fact, in quantitative research, they just say methods. They don't say methodology. They don't look at is it qualitative, quantitative case. They just say population 30 million, sampling, convenience, non-random sampling, and 33,000 over 30 million population. So it's very clear what they're doing and conducted for 6 months from this date to that date. Okay. But in the qualitative, you have to express more. In fact, many journals with Scopus would say, we don't want just one short sentence or paragraph methodology. You have to fully develop and explain what you have done with your research. In humanities, they don't care about methodology because most of them are conceptual, plain ideas. Like, was Jesus a carpenter like Joseph or not? So they will dig into the literature. It's all mostly archival research. So they don't need to say it's archival research. Whereas in qualitative research, when you go field work, in social work, for example, you are serving the Dalits in one rural village. Then you have to explain, how did you go to this village and with the Dalit community? Were you able to get government permission? Did you have ethics approval from an institutional review board? And so on and so forth. Okay, so qualitative paper needs detailed methodology. Quantitative paper needs methods. That's enough. Humanities, they don't even mention that when they write their papers. So totally different ways by which methods and methodology are viewed. Nothing in humanities, methods only in quantitative, and qualitative, they want you to have a full blown discussion of the methodology of your research. Totally three different worlds apart. So in a nutshell, when you do write your abstract, take this into consideration. It should be concise, a summary. It's like looking into the soul of your paper. Okay? It's a snapshot of your whole paper. It's a super duper quick overview of what you have written, and you must highlight the most important elements, among which are the problem, the methods, the findings, the conclusion. And oftentimes it's 200 words max. But again, follow the author guidelines. They vary from one journal or conference to another. This is a basic template for an abstract. A very simple, you can paraphrase or expand on this. This paper addressed the problem of blank, or this paper addressed the need to blank. So you have the problem statement there. It dealt with the following general purpose, if it's qualitative, or research questions, or specific questions, or if it's quantitative, the following hypothesis. The literature or theory or concept of blank guided this research. Methods used include blank. It is limited to blank. That is the scope of your paper. Findings, if it's qualitative, or results, quantitative, reveal that blank. Okay. This paper contributed to blank. That's a contribution of your study that you have to show. Okay. And then you have, it concluded that, or this paper recommended that. So you have a choice to write one or the other. Okay, so those are this is a template that you can use. And in fact, some of my friends who are teaching, Americans, European Americans, have asked my permission if they can use this when they write their abstract. I said, sure, no problem at all. Okay, so this is a matrix if you want. So this is fill in the blank. So to write your abstract and do a word count, the problem this paper addresses is, or the gap this paper will fill is, then there is a need to blank as the community is suffering this and that. So just choose one, again, because they are kind of related, so lump them together. For qualitative paper, the next is the general purpose, or the three research questions, or the three research objectives are blank. In quantitative paper, this paper raised and confirmed three hypotheses. In humanities paper, the thesis statement of this paper is blank. So one or the other. And then for the concepts or theories or literature, just write, for example, literary criticism was the framework by which this paper was conducted or is guided. Okay, so that short sentence is enough. Methods or methodology, depending, it's qualitative, quantitative, the same. The findings of this paper are 1, 2, 3, if you have three research questions. For qualitative research, for quantitative research results, this paper had proven that single, unmarried, young students tend to have higher rate of academic success than married older students, for example, using nonlinear multiple regression. Okay. And conclusion for qualitative, discussion for quantitative, or you can say, instead of the conclusion, this paper contributed to. So it's time for you to say how good your research is. You had contributed to new knowledge in what? Or new medicine. Or you can say, this paper had limitation, therefore, the agenda for further research includes uh, testing new vaccine, because my research did not succeed in upending the previous vaccines. It's not any better or worse. So there's a need for further research in the development of new vaccines. And 5 keywords in alphabetical order. So this could be a very useful tool when you are preparing your abstract for publication. Okay, so here I showed the different outlines. For humanities, when you write a paper or abstract, you have introduction with the thesis statement, the body, it's called body, and conclusion. A conclusion is just confirming or rejecting the thesis statement. That's simple. In qualitative research, number 1, introduction, separate literature review, separate methodology. The findings could be 2 parts: analysis, the facts and figures, plain, just what you have discovered. Discussion would be your own interpretation. This could be one step after the data that you have collected. And then conclusion. Second version is you have findings, is plainly analysis, the facts and figures that you would receive, that you have gathered during your research, and conclusion would include your interpretation. So there are different ways of presenting your qualitative paper. In quantitative research, you have a hypothesis, and your literature is already included in the introduction of the latest findings, like what types of vaccines are available and how efficacious are they. And the method section, results, that's what it's called in quantitative, findings in qualitative, body, that's what it's called in humanities, and conclusion is called discussion. Okay, so different outlines. Here are some sample abstracts that I have written. This is my journal article published last year in December. No. This is in June, I think. Yeah. So I put the keyword, I underscored the problem. So my first part is the problem. It actually appeared. It's good to have the word problem appear so we know without guessing that you have identified a problem. And then this paper queried, which means the research questions the following. And you would see there are question marks here and there. And then literature, I underscored. So this says the literature I've used are this and that. And then qualitative case study research design, that's my methodology, using an inductive approach for which data collection, comb through, etc. So data analysis, I underscored the word too. Then findings, I underscored so you can see. And then conflicting narratives is my conclusion. I found out that there are conflicting narratives. And keywords, 5 of them in alphabetical order: NATO, peace, Russia, special military operation, and Ukraine. So all of what are required in a good abstract exist. Problem, questions, purpose, literature, methodology, data analysis, findings, and conclusion. So that's one example. Another example, this is a chapter in a book published in New York, December 2023, a couple of months ago. So the abstract is very short. That's the required. There's a need. Remember I said problem or gap or need. Okay, queries. So I indicated the research questions. And then what is the way forward? And to perform this, political economy was used. So that is the theory which I use in writing the paper. They required a small one, so I cannot put everything in. So that was enough for them. But those are key elements of an abstract. Another abstract, this was published also in June. Okay. Post-Ukraine crisis world order, alternative futures in the international political economy. Keyword problem. So the reviewers do not have to guess. Did I include the problem? Yes. It raised the query. Again, that's a research question. And then this case study. So you see that is the methodology, qualitative research design. The study focused on. So you would see the findings and the conclusion. Different front runners and losers. There are winners and losers. And political economy was the framework. The literature and keywords in alphabetical order: alternative futures, BRICS, geopolitics, international political economy, and Ukraine. Okay, and most again want first letter in capital letter. Okay, this is another paper published in a chapter in a book. Yeah, it took like 3 years for them to go through, like there were 10, 12, 15 authors to find it. This is published by Taylor and Francis. Okay. So again, in fact, this chapter had 0 editing and 0 changes. A rare instance where my paper was just accepted. It went through many reviews with many reviewers. First, it was university level, and there's an internal review, and they selected only some articles to be included in the book. And secondly, this was Hong Kong, Chinese University of Hong Kong. And then they sent it to Taylor and Francis. There's another round of review and 0 editing at all or changes. Okay, let's look. I highlighted the problem, the first keyword, the research purpose, second keyword, the theoretical lens, that's the literature, the methodology, data collection, another keyword, the findings are, the recommendation. So all of the important elements of an abstract are all there. And then keywords, you have in alphabetical order: advocacy, contextual, the theology, ecumenism, peace building, social transformation, spiritual leadership. Okay, so in one paragraph, everything is laid down crystal clearly. Another sample abstract. This is my latest publication in December in the journal, 2023 December. Again, I highlighted the keyword problem, the purpose of this. It's an exploratory research. That's a research methodology. Research questions, and then conclusion. Religious institutions can play an active role. This journal does not want capital letters in the keywords. It's rare. Most want first letter to be capital letter. Artificial intelligence, ethics, religious practices, mobile apps, and technology. Okay, so that's another sample. Impact of AI-powered technology on religious practices and ethics, the road ahead. Okay, so precise language is needed when you write your manuscript. Clear, readable, anyone should be able to understand what you wrote, even if they're from music, or from engineering, from IT, from agriculture, from theology, from philosophy, from English. Everyone should understand what you wrote. The old approach is the more complex, the more we don't understand what you wrote, the more intelligent you are. Those are gone. Those days are gone. Now they want everything you write to be crystal clear. Feynman technique. Feynman is a very famous Nobel laureate in physics. He was well known for his teaching power. He was teaching physics, You can see his video in black and white on YouTube, how powerful his teaching is. Teaching physics, a very difficult subject, in very simple ways. And he won the Nobel Prize in physics. And he said, whatever you write, a child should be able to understand what you wrote. So if you have families, if the youngest person at home, you have grandchildren, talk to them. If they don't understand what we're saying, like, Grandpa, I don't know what you're talking about, then your writing is not good enough. That's the new approach now in the US. Even when I presented my doctoral defense, they said anyone can to be the external committee member. They say it could be from engineering or public health or mathematics. I said, really? But the person who came was from public administration. So it was so understandable. She said, "Oh, I know what you're doing with your research," and so that's the new way now of writing, as simple as we can. And you should be able to connect to social concerns, or either in social sciences, or in the medical sciences, or in engineering, or in law, whatever field, communication. You should be able to respond to the needs of society. So clear, jargon-free language. Use plain language to explain complex theories. If it's necessary to use jargon, define it immediately in the next sentence. Immediately, if we want to use the jargon, and explain technical terms very simply for non-technical readers. Again, your grandchild or your son or your daughter, they could be the testing ground for this. And then you have conceptual definition. So you would give abstract definition to abstract term. Okay, like explain medical terms in layperson's vocabulary. In humanities, demystify abstract concepts like postmodern. What do you mean by postmodern? You understand it, but not the common person. Operational definition is to how did you actually use that word in your research? So, for example, in agriculture, operationalized crop yield, what do you mean? 1 hectare should produce 1 bushel of corn, whatever. Or in law, clarify legal concepts with practical examples. Like you say genocide, but we don't know what is genocide. Explain what genocide means, or ethnic cleansing. Okay, so you have to give two sets of definition. Conceptual definition is abstract, defining a word with other words. In operational definition, you give us measurable indicators, practical, the specific things that you're actually measuring. I'll give an example of workload. Conceptually, the conceptual definition is the amount of work you do, okay, or task. Operationally, count of assigned tasks in a given period. So it's measurable. Okay, so workload means mental and physical effort conceptually. Operationally, you would say, okay, we will rate your perceived effort on a scale of 1, very bad, to 10, perfect. So that's operational definition. You're measuring that. Conceptually, work demand and responsibility. But how do you measure it operationally? Give a list of specific job responsibilities, like 6 a.m. flag ceremony, 6:30 roll call, 7 o'clock open the gates, things like that. So they should be measurable. And then conceptually, impact on individuals' capacity. That's abstract again. For operational definition, time spent on work-related activities. Like 3 hours should be given to desk work, and 3 hours for out of the office work, and 3 hours for off-campus work. Okay, so city visits and so on. So they are measurable in the operational definition. And combination of quantity and quality for conceptual definition. And operational definition, then you have to give them tasks and tell them the level of complexity and the time needed to complete those tasks. So two types of definitions. For books, you need to give a glossary so that everyone can know what you're doing on one sheet of paper. They will see what are the issues being discussed on one sheet of paper. Okay, and then balancing act. Be simple, but you must have technicality. Look at Einstein. He made in a very simple equation a very complex theory. E is equal mc squared. It can be done. Okay, so it's called parsimonious and elegant. This and Einstein's theory is known to be elegant and parsimonious. And be inclusive in your language, gender and culture, he, she, it. In the US, for example, there's Latin in the past, and then Latino for man, Latina for woman, and then the language evolved. They changed to AS, that means men and women, singular and plural. Now, the vocabulary which is acceptable is Latinx. So the language had evolved, and to be respectful, you have to say what they want you to call them. And then for business and law, be culturally sensitive. You cannot impose one value and say that's how things should be done, because different countries and different cultures have different ways of doing things. So those are problematic if you insist on one way of doing things. And the level of jargon depends on your field. Some fields have more jargon, like maybe engineering and physics, than others. Okay, so we have to take that into consideration. Be an exciting storyteller, not a boring author whose writings are filled with words we don't understand. So what's the point of writing if you cannot communicate with others? There's no point. So the more effective you are in communicating with others, the better. So be a great storyteller. Citations and references. You have, if you are not using Zotero yet, I am teaching only PhD students here in Thailand. We are using Zotero. First day of class, I trained them how to use Zotero because it automatically puts footnotes, endnotes, in text citation, references, and bibliography automatically. And if you wrote an APA and the journal requires you to write in Chicago style, by the push of a finger, click, you can automatically change from APA to Chicago. No sweat, just one click of your finger. So download, it's a free app, both for desktop and for browser connector. You need both on all the time for it to work, and your Word document. 3 things should be on for this to work well. And understand the style, what style is required. Is it APA, is it Chicago, Harvard, MLA? But be consistent when you use it and follow author guidelines. Do they want in-text citation, or do they want footnotes, or do they want endnotes? And each style is different. And always follow the guidelines of the journal or of the book to which you're submitting your article. Do they want references or do they want bibliography? They are not the same. Okay? Bibliography and references are not the same. I'll explain. And some sources you will use, which are credible, include academic literature, like from Elsevier, Eric, Francis and Taylor, Nature, Oxford, Scopus, Web of Science, and university press all over the world. Then you have gray literature. Gray literature simply means documents which are not academic, but are credible and acceptable, such as UN reports, government reports, corporate reports, or NGO reports. These are gray literature. And also reliable news sources. The problem with news sources nowadays is most are not reliable. So unfortunately, there's a lot of fake news and misinformation even from mainstream media. Okay, so be careful when you use news sources and avoid plagiarism. That's why you need to make references and have in-text citation when you write your papers and put quotation marks for direct quotes. We have problem here, for example, with our students. Some make claims that clearly the authors did not make. So I tell some of our students, cite the author page number where that thing was said. And then the student would admit, say, no, the author did not actually say it. See, those are dangerous. You're claiming an author said something which the author did not say. That's why we demand that students, when they make very strong, in fact, controversial claim, that they should quote the source with appropriate page number and the actual quotation, especially if they are very controversial statements. Okay. And if you can't find the DOI, or if they are available publicly in the internet, you must provide the URL, HTTP, and digital object identifier. That will give you more credibility because people can look at the sources. In fact, a lot of journals, when they put your announcement of your article in the journal, they will include all of your reference lists on the abstract page. They do that. This is now very common. And they will include the DOI or URL. So the readers can click on your sources. So many journals now, when they put your abstract on one page just for you, they also copy and paste all of the sources with the DOI and the URL. This is very important. We're now in the digital age. So this is now something we have to add. Whatever style you're using, APA, Chicago, Harvard, or MLA, or Turabian, etc. Okay, if there are many authors, you have to recognize all the authors. But again, it depends on the format, et al., if you have more than 3. And then secondary sources, if you are quoting somebody who had quoted somebody else, you have to go back to the original. If you say Lederach quoted Galtung, but you did not read Galtung, better go back and check Galtung that Lederach had said he had checked. Okay, so be consistent if you're using references or bibliography. Again, they are not the same. References, look at what you have actually directly used. Bibliography is everything that you have consulted but not used. In many instances, my university, we only want students, when they write their journal articles and their final paper, they should only cite what they've actually used, whether they call it reference list or bibliography, not things that they have not used. We don't allow that. Okay, let me skip this. Figures and tables. Okay, this is in red because it's very important. Note, more often than not, the only things that researchers read are your title, your abstract, and your keywords. Most of the time. Therefore, your title and abstract must be, and keywords must be very well thought out. And if they think that they match your title, abstract, and keywords match their research, they will cite you. But secondarily, your tables and figures must summarize what you are saying in so many pages, in so complex terms. So these are the most important parts of your research for the common reader who has no time to read everything else. So many journals require both tables and figures. Okay, great figures and tables concisely summarize the whole paper. Okay, do not copy and paste other people's tables and figures. You're not bringing in something new. In fact, there are copyright problems. You have to get the permission of the original authors. So why bother? And you are not contributing to new knowledge. You should only put your own original figures and tables. This will be the visual representation of your data, so readers can understand what you're doing. In fact, in many research work projects, they want you to draw the relationship of the factors or variable using in your paper. They call that conceptual framework, and that is a figure. Okay, a table can give you an idea of how to compare and contrast both the qualitative and quantitative findings on one sheet of paper. Okay, and this will make people understand on one sheet of paper what you're doing. I'll give you an example of a figure. Here, this is a figure of one of my articles in a journal. First revolution, second revolution, third, and then fourth revolution, technological revolution. Okay, so people can see what I've said in so many pages in one drawing. Another one, I said transhumanism. It's a product of combining digital, human, and the physical. For many pages I discuss it, it can be put in one figure. And then this one, every time you write a table or figure, you must write see figure below or see table immediately, right before the table or figure. So these are some of the things that I've used for this article in alphabetical order. Okay. And then another figure which summarized the problems with the use of artificial intelligence, 5 flaws of language models using metadata. So see figure 5 below. Immediately right before figure or table, you should write that. This is for my theory. After reading the literature review, I said I combined critical theory with post-colonial theory and the human rights-based approach. And that is the theory I'm using in my paper. So people don't have to read the whole literature review. They can see in one figure. That's the purpose of a figure. A table, this one, again, I summarize all the uniqueness and similarities and differences of the 5 revolutions and when they started. Okay, in one table, and I discuss it in so many pages. This is a summary of my whole paper, 1, 2, 3, 4. In fact, research question 1, research question 2, research question 3, and research question 4. And that's my grounded theory. Okay, in one figure. Again, this is a summary of the whole paper. Okay, case study, social problem, and there are 4 concerns. And what did they do with these 4 concerns? And what is the outcome? Social transformation. Without reading the paper, you already know what was going on in the paper. So you do this at the end, summarize everything in a figure or in a table. Okay, this is another paper that I wrote. I think, yeah, most of these are journal articles I wrote last year. This is the summary. Research question 1, what are the benefits of using AI? There are 9. What research question 2, what's the negative impact? There are 7. And research question 3, what are the ethical concerns? There are 8. And what is the future agenda? Research question 4, 2. Okay, one table summarizes the whole table, paper. Okay, here again, the same thing. Again, every time you have a table or a figure, immediately before that, you have to say, see table below or see figure below, always. Okay, proofreading and editing, you should do member check first. Every time you have, let's say, an interview, you have your transcript. Once you have decoded them, send them back to the people whom you have interviewed and get their feedback. And then peer review, ask your colleagues, other faculty members, or your classmates to read what you have written, since they more or less know what you're doing. You are studying in the same department or field or faculty. so they can give you feedback on what you've written, including if you have factual errors, dirty paper, if you have many grammatical errors, problems with punctuation marks, spelling errors, not following format, your paper might be rejected because the reviewers will hate you for all of these useless errors they don't need to see. Very importantly, do not have factual errors too. And there are differences among editing, proofreading, and copy editing. Editing is while you are writing your paper, always edit, check if there are mistakes, things to be corrected. Proofreading is once you're done with your paper, get a big view and see what's going on. One by one, see if there are errors. Copy editing, you have to meticulously make changes. And sometimes people hire professional copy editors to make the comma, period, and then the margins, 1 inch, 2 inches, correct. Okay, so this is the meticulous work after your paper is done. Okay, since we don't have time, I will not talk. In summary, this is what we've discussed. And in conclusion, we have to go back and realize that we should work together and write a good paper, a manuscript, and we should get our wisdom from other researchers who've already written, and we should try to engage in collaborative efforts and accept different ways by which we look at the world and when we conduct our research. And research would be planting seeds of innovation. And I hope we would embrace all of our problems in identifying what should be done in society. And then from there, we can collaborate and work together and conduct research. I welcome you also if you want to collaborate with me to write journal articles or book chapters. Thank you very much.